Thank you, Keir Starmer. Part of your pitch today seems to be to try to energise apathetic voters, but beyond the rhetoric in that speech, and there was lots of it, when you get to the nuts and bolts of a Labour government, on public services you say money's so tight you won't invest. On tax you more or less ape the Tories, and you seem to be ditching your one big idea, which is big money for green investment. Your entire pitch seems to be vote Labour to see the back of the Tories. Isn't there a danger that voters will see you not as a leader of change, but one who's overly cautious and timid and who turns them off?
Hey, that was a good question. And she has now been disinvited from all the Labour Party.
Yeah, immediately taken out of the lobby.
No, she's just lost the whip. No, she can't. She's not allowed in the party anymore.
True, she has been sacked from the front bench. But what's interesting as well is that this isn't the first time that she's questioned him heavily. Remember when she continually pressed him on a potential coalition with the Lib Dems if there was a hung parliament? He just didn't answer. Like he's usually on the ball with pressing people, but none of the things that she said there are in any way incorrect, because she has basically done what I've been doing for the last 18 months of critiquing his policy positions, which no other journalist does, right? Where, again, when we saw the other speeches people done, they just ask about meaningless stuff. Remember on the last speech he did, which was about the NHS, when he was in front of the ambulance and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And people just asked questions about migration, despite that wasn't what the speech was about, which just shows that the journalists kind of choose the frame of the debate. But for once, somebody's actually going, those policies that you said, well, no, actually, when you actually look at the nuts and bolts of what you're promising, all of this bluster, all of this rhetoric you're giving is completely empty because the policy's not there. So, fair play to Beth Rigby.
Well, I was about to say, for the last year, you, Helena, have been the actual fourth estate. Yeah. You literally have, holding position MPs to account in a way that the British media has not.
She's going to receive a stern message on WhatsApp from Starmer now, scolding her for her real questioning. And it'd be interesting to see what Starmer says, but it'll most certainly won't be answering it. It'll be like, no, it's definitely changed. It's definitely changed. But what about tangible things like policy?
As well as that he's been allowed to essentially coast off of not actually backing up his rhetoric with policy for like 3 years. He's not been questioned on this at all. I think the very first time I saw him questioned on going back on his pledges from the leadership election was an interview with Sophie Ridge on a Sunday morning programme, where she said, well, actually, you said you were going to take back NHS privatisation, but you've actually gone on record as saying you want more of it now under Wes Streeting. So that is opposite to the policy pledge, and you could see him getting angry at the idea he would be questioned on this. He's had such an easy ride.
He's terrible as well. I mean, like the only reason why he hasn't looked too bad overall to someone who doesn't really engage in politics is simply because the media hasn't pushed back on him. But in the rare instances where it's been very obvious, like his U-turns on the pledges on nationalisation, he has visibly looked really, really uncomfortable because he's not really been tested. And if the media had done their job from day one, Starmer would not be enjoying the luxury of where he is at the moment. He probably still would be leading in the polls, but he certainly would not be leading by this much. And it's why when they have allowed him to be in his position.
And it's why when they do question him as well, he gets flustered and he doesn't know what to do, because he's not used to having his empty rhetoric in some way scrutinised by the people whose literal job it is to scrutinise this stuff, because they're too busy asking about whatever their pet issue du jour is, whether it's about Rwanda or whether it's about legal migration figures or whether it's about internal Westminster stuff that isn't actually important to people on the ground.
Beth, I think if you look at this distinction, the change that we're offering, the difference that we want to make between 14 years of decline and a decade of national renewal, they are two fundamentally different things.
That's rhetoric. That's not policy. I mean, anyone can say, well, you've got 14 years decline. Well, here's 10 years of doing good things. That's all he's saying, but there's nothing beyond that. That is pure vague platitude and rhetoric. That's really weird. Don't you dare question me, because I said I'm going to do good things and the Tories have done bad things. So there's the difference. I want to do good things. That's it.
The explicit question was, you say this. I know you say you're going to change, but none of the policy reflects any of the change that you tell us you want to do rhetorically. And he's just answered in the same way that he gave during the speech of, but I've promised to do the good things. Isn't that enough for you?
Government by soundbite. Let's go.
10 years of national renewal means absolutely nothing. What is the policies that can lead to this renewal? Or what's your strategy? What's your plan? But just saying national renewal over and over again is not good enough.
No.
I mean, for
No,
Starmer,
good
it
thing.
probably
No,
is,
no.
but it's not
Look,
good enough for
no.
reality, for the real world.
National renewal is when the government says it's doing good stuff, and the more it says
sorry.
it's doing good stuff, the more renewer it is.
Apologies. Don't send me a shitty WhatsApp message. Please don't. I apologize. I won't ask you a tough question again.
Yeah.
I've set out over the last 12 months 5 national missions that we will.
Missions aren't
seek
policy
to
either.
achieve.
Yeah.
Missions
It's
aren't
all
policy. Okay,
rhetoric.
just to point out for people who are unaware, when he talks about 5 missions, this is based upon, there's a book by an economist called Mariana Mazzucato that's called Mission Economy, stating that when you're trying to govern correctly, you want to set out broader missions and then have different policies that you feed into those missions to be able to provide proof of concept. Reasonable way of being able to show people how you want to govern in a kind of social democratic economy or whatever it might be. And what they've done is they've read the first chapter and gone, oh, so you're going to have missions, do you? Okay, we'll make some missions and then have that as a framework. And yet they've not done any of the actual legwork to have policy that feeds into how those things might work. Like, take, for example, this mission to be able to get Britain building again. And then they say, well, we're just going to reform planning. How? Don't know. Just going to do it. Private sector, fingers crossed. And that's not an actual, real plan of how to create the goal.
Position you're taking. Saying like, NHS fit for the future. Every single politician says shit like this. That's rhetoric. That is not a policy platform or a position. It's how would you do this? I mean, yeah, he's kind of taken that. By the way, Mariana Mazzucato based, but he's just taken the end point. It's like, let's have 5 missions, but nothing. Yeah, there's no backup from that. There's no explanation or policies within that. And he talks about how, people think that politicians are all the same. They say all this stuff to get votes, but you're feeding into that narrative because as long as I've been alive, apart from Jeremy Corbyn, who was the only politician who I felt like who was a leader who had any substance. I've only ever seen leaders and politicians speak in platitudes and rhetoric. They're saying the things you want to hear. Of course, every politician, no matter how right-wing you are, excellent public services. But that's not a policy position. None of that means anything because any politician, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, can claim that. What you can't claim is, well, we want to rid the NHS of private provision. That now means you're probably on the left and you've made a position and a policy there. But if you don't do that, it's just broad bollocks.
Yep.
You're 100% correct. 100% correct. What's interesting, the Anti-Strike points out in chat, are these missions anything like pledges? And it's specific that they're not pledges, because if you don't hit the mission, you can say, we had the goal to do this, but sometimes you can't get everything you want. And you know what? That's fair enough. Sometimes you can't get everything that you want. And obviously, given how much he has been held to account by YouTubers and Twitch streamers for breaking his pledges, not by the media, of course, heaven forfend they do their actual job, but it's much easier to miss a mission than it is to miss a pledge.
If you're a Starmer supporter on Twitter, though, missions and pledges are interchangeable. So he had 10 pledges as a leader. Well, no, they were more like missions. They were literally pledges with his fucking
we like to think of them as guidelines. Because you fell from a different bias. I laughed at him on stream because of this. He said that they weren't 10 pledges, they were 10 positions, right? And they're not actually really pledges. And I just pulled up the website. No, it says my pledges to you, pledge 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Like,
then he's like even if it's not pledges, my 10 positions are I want to renationalize the railways or energy, then saying, well, we're not going to do that. It's still you turning on that position. It doesn't make it any better. You're still a lying scumbag.
No, it's just a suggestion. It's just a kind of. It's look. He's just spitballing some ideas. We'll see what happens.
They're not my positions. They just are 10 positions in politics. So, sorry, I didn't mean they're clear. Here are 10 policies that exist in politics. They're not mine.
Yeah.
They're just there.
Yeah, these are 10 pledges that someone could make.
Someone could make, and someone has done in the past, or maybe the future.
Exactly.
Not necessarily me, though.
Yeah, it's a think piece,
Over the period of the next Labour government. And they are really ambitious. The idea that there's no change. The highest sustained growth in the G7 felt with living standards improved across the whole of the country. That's huge.
Yeah, but that's not. But how are you going to do any of that?
That's not a. The Tories want the highest growth in the G7. The Tories want high well,
Yeah, look,
they say they want high living standards for workers. Again, these things are meaningless.
You say, look, no, you say, Beth, that there's no change, but actually, we promised to give everyone mech suits. So shut up. How are you going to do that?
That's at least a policy, right? That is at least a policy, Ken, to give people mech suits. That is more policy than just saying we are going to grow the economy.
But politicians need to understand that outcomes aren't policy. So saying everyone, it's like when the Democrats say we want everyone to be covered under healthcare, but they don't support like universal healthcare. They just say, well, we want more coverage. Outcome isn't a policy because anyone can say that, and without that, there's no you can't hold them to account as well because there's no specific bar you can hold them to. It's like it's a way of shirking any sort of responsibility anyway. But he hasn't really answered the question.
Nobody says to me that that's a minor difference. It's a huge, huge difference. Clean power by 2030 will be lower bills, energy security, the next generation of jobs. Nobody says to me that's no different to the Tories. They say, how are you going to achieve it? When we say we want high...
and how do you answer that question?
And and then what do you say to that?
Go. So,
bang, hit grow the economy. Bang, hit that big red button. That's it. You've kind of like, you sort of admitted it yourself there. It's like, they do ask, how am I going to do it? That's the integral part, though. How are you going to do it as opposed to the Tories?
Safer streets, within which we are committing to halving violence against women and girls. No government or opposition has ever committed to that before. And I know
it's still an outcome. It's still an outcome and not a policy.
Doesn't mean anything.
And we're going to do that by hiring more police who definitely aren't the problem and are a solution to that. Because they don't do violence against women. They don't do violence against women and girls. Let me tell you that.
Even saying hiring more police is a policy. That is actually still a policy. We are going to hire more police.
Yeah, ironically, Suella Braverman had more policy on this than Keir Starmer does.
Yes.
Prosecuted, just how hard that is. Nobody says to me that's no difference. If it's the opportunities that our children need, the skills they need, nobody says that's no different. And whether it's the NHS that is, not just on its knees, on its face at the moment, being picked up and made fit for the future.
Ah, yes, bingo. Does anyone got that on their bingo card?
What?
NHS fit for the
NHS
future.
fit for the future. Yeah, I got that.
Oh no, I don't have that one. Bollocks.
Do you not?
No, I don't have it either. But it's exactly. He's also said NHS on its not on its knees, it's on its face before. That's also a thing that he keeps saying. It's another thing that he just keeps saying over and over again. And on top of that, this is literally another outcome that's not a policy.
Outcome. Yeah.
To me, that's no different. These are huge, fundamental differences. And the power this year is with the voters to vote for that change. So I think there's a huge, clear distinction here. We've set out our case in terms.
Can you please explain to me how your policies are different to the Tories? Well, the voters have the power to vote for a party. What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it's a little bit.
Okay.
The fact that you have to make the point so strenuously that there's this massive difference between you suggests that there might not be such a massive difference between you.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the T-shirt meme. It's like it is the big difference between myself and the Conservative Party, and all the questions thereof are explained by my T-shirt that says we are very different from the Conservative Party.
Exactly.
It is very clearly the risk of going on with 14 more years of this decline, or turning our face to the task of national renewal.
Yeah, please explain me. Starmer, I'm a stupid dumb fuck. Explain to me what that means.
It means you could turn it off and then back on again.
That is a policy, though, which he has not announced. So you now have a more of a... The Lost ending has a more explanatory policy platform than Starmer. And by the way, if anyone watches Lost, you get that. If you don't, then you suck.
Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for membership. It's just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care. And make sure you go and follow Kevin Logan, Turn Left, and Mix Vivian Wolf, who I've linked in the description.